Hey guys, Paul from Nolatone Ampworks here. Wet my whistle. I'm doing something new here. Decided to set up, let me turn this headphone down a little bit. I have headphones because I have mic'd up. I have my lavalier mic. I have the small cabinet, Nolatone cabinet over here, loaded with a green beret, WGS green beret, which is a greenback. Mic'd up with a M160 Bayer. I found it, of all the mics I currently own, to give me the most realistic representation of what I hear in the room. So I dialed it up to where, with phones, I hear pretty much what I'm hearing without them. So I'm hoping this translates well. So I'm going through my Cranbourne audio with TG Chandler TG 500 mic preamp, and then the voice going through a Cranbourne mic, what do they call this thing? A Camden mic preamp. Got my RNC set up. I have set up to duck la 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 la. I'm using the side chain of the guitar signal to duck the vocal mic so it doesn't pick up what the guitar is doing. So hopefully this is working. I think this is going to be pretty cool. At any rate, so what I'm doing here is I'm bringing you to my bench and then sharing with you an amp voicing session. Hopefully somebody finds this interesting. What we have here is a horrifyingly hacked Junebug 2 chassis. What I'm doing is, get back up here for the mug shot. Ooh. Let's get the cables worked out. Bear with me as I'm fine-tuning this setup. I don't quite have it the way I want it yet. But what I'm doing is the second amp that I ever designed after Nolatone came to be is a little amp called the Junebug. And started with a kind of a Tweed Princeton configuration, but I added another tube. And with that tube, I added extra gain stages. So the Junebug is named after my daughter. Her name is Ava June, and her nickname when she was little was Junebug. I don't think she really cares for that name so much now that she's 17 and graduating next year. So this new iteration of this amplifier is going to be called Junebug the Graduate, because she'll be graduating next year. And in the pattern of life, this amplifier, I believe, is going to be more mature and give, reflecting a little bit more of what I've learned over the years, over the last 14 or so years of designing these things, various circuits, and and they're all borrowed in one way or another from something that's been done before. So I'm not going to claim myself to be any kind of visionary or genius, but I do try to make make a combination that's not what everybody else is doing. So if you just want a Tweed Champ or a Tweed Princeton, crank it up one knob and go to town, go for it. There's plenty of them out there. That's really not my thing. I try to add a little bit of versatility. So yeah, the other night I had the first iteration of this out. Nicky Morrock was over, and he said, and if you don't know Nicky, just search for Nicky Morrock on YouTube. He's quite the prolific musician, session guy, does side gigs for various people. He's a guitarist primarily, though he is a multi-instrumentalist, and he's one hell of a nice guy until you meet him, and then you find out maybe not. No, I'm just kidding, Nicky, I love you. But anyway, he said, he always says this: don't F with it, just leave it right here. And of course he got the sound he wanted in the setting he wanted, and it was cool and it sounded that way, and maybe we'll end up doing that. But I need to be able to offer a wider palette. So what I did with this, the original Junebug had 2 preamp tubes. Original Tweed Princeton or Champ only has 1. So you have the input stage, and then you have the output stage, which connects to the output section. This with the Junebug 1, the original Junebug, I added an extra tube, which added 2 more gain stages, and for that I used those for gain. So you could have the that was the wild channel for those that you remember the original Junebug. So what I've done here, still have 2 preamp tubes. One of them's a pentode though. So we have a pentode and 2 triodes in this second output tube, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this down so you can start seeing what I'm talking about here. Not getting the ideal angles. So, I hope I don't drop this thing into the middle of the chassis. All right, you behave. I'm going to put this up top to help hold it straight. Yeah, okay. So we have 2 preamp tubes. One of them's a pentode, and we only use half of the second one to drive the output, so that leaves us one stage for one more triode for an extra gain stage. So the first iteration was all of this just tied together, and it was just one volume, tone, and master, and that was it. And don't F with it, he said. So here I am effing with it. Because what I wanted to be able to do was, give the user so here it is. What I've done is I've switched in the extra gain stage. It has its own volume. So you have a volume and a tone, which is global, and then you have the master volume, which is down here, just out of the camera frame. And then you have switch, which kicks in the extra gain stage, and it has its own volume control. But for now, I'll just show you what I did. I wanted to have a cleaner option for people that want, a cleaner sound. So I'll turn up the master and turn this up, and so a good fat Stratty. But then again, I also wanted to have a little more of that Fender curve on the input. That Fender curve on the input. So you got, I have on a switch 2 input bypass cap values. This is a Marshall, and this is the Fender. So you can get the back off the gain a little bit. So you can get the bouncier Fender Stratty sound. Okay, so you have that versatility now. So the tone control, you probably, to get the traditional Fendery, blackfacey, probably want to turn the tone control up. Yeah, so, and then put the fat fender cap in to give it more bounce. I'm not much of a clean fender player. Kind of have a rock and roll heart. So, at any rate, so, you know, in this, just pentoed input and normal output. Switch it to the Marshall crunchier version. So you can get a you know, a nice driven push dirty sound, just like if you were to crank up a Champ or a Princeton. Of course, the speaker is not going to be as ratty and nasty sounding as this is a 12-inch British voiced greenback. So you know, versus a 8 or 10-inch, we're just going to get rattier. So, of course, you can jack this into an 8-inch cabinet if that makes you happy. It's got a speaker output jack that can be plugged into whatever you want. Okay, so that's the clean-ish channel. It's 5 watts, tube rectified in this case, or it can be use a plug-in solid state. This has a 5Y3 in it. Okay, so that's the clean. Okay, so when we kick in this overdrive, okay, there's part of the other challenge is to make overdrive sound good, or the best, you know, ideal. You don't want to pass as much low end through as you might want to get a good bouncy clean. So to get this good bouncy clean, kick in the fender just to maximize. You kind of get that bounce, you get that rumpy bottom that's part of that fender bounce. That's what I associate with a fender, a cleaner fender sound. But you know, if you want to get crunchy, you want to reduce the amount of that low that comes through. So those two concepts kind of contradict each other. So this is another reason I went this route. I'm going to I'm going to click in the extra gain stage, and I've got the volume all the way down. I'm going to turn it up. Let's switch off let's get the Marshall crunchy cap engaged here. Let's put the guitar in the bridge position, because that's just Mud City, unless you're doing leads. Okay, so you can hear, if I switch this off, and that sounds pretty cool, but it's got more low. So when I kick in this, I reconfigure that shelving cap between the first stage and the next stage, and it's passing less low. And as you crank up the gain here, You really need to cut that low or else it gets real muddy. You also want to back off on the treble a little bit, or at least I do. To me, that's the highs are too. The highs are a little bit, you know, I like to roll them off whenever you're really getting more preamp distortion to get a smoother sound. Of course, that may be your thing. That's to each his own. We'll back it way down to you know, bedroom levels. This amp does that well. Okay. You can back the tone even further down. Okay, so now, and if you still want more, you know, cream or thick, you can kick in the Fender cap. It'll still fatten it up, but it's going to be still less muddy with the lower cap value. Now, how do I do that, you ask? Just with a switch? Well, I'm not going to give away. It's really no secret for somebody who knows how to do this stuff, but let's just say series capacitance can be your friend in this case. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the overdrive channel. Part of this voicing session is to decide what to do about this. Now, this so I'm cranking both of these up now, so I get the maximum amount of preamp gain. So to me, I call it hash. It's kind of like a low mid, just a little bit of, I don't know if it's harmonics. I don't know what it is, but it just gets a little busy down at certain frequency. It's like that ba-ba, ba-ba. Now this is the typical value of capacitor you would use in a hot rod plexi circuit. 0.0022. That's a common high gain amplifier coupling capacitor value. It seems to be a sweet spot for letting enough low through that things don't get too thin and crispy, but you know, shelving off enough that we don't get muddy. But in this one, it's kind of sounding. It probably has something to do with the saggy 5Y3. You know, it might sound different with a different rectifier. And the other thing is you got to remember, this is a 5, this is a 6V6 single-ended. It's not going to do the same thing as a pair of push-pull tubes in a push-pull configuration. It's just a different animal, which is why I've had a few iterations of the Junebug over the years, because I try to get happy with, you know, ultimately satisfied with the sound overdrive and the preamp circuit going into the single-ended, and it's a different beast. That you use a slightly different approach than you might use with a pair or quad of push-pull output tubes. So what I did here was I wired up a switch that changes the coupling cap value. Used a much smaller one in this mode. So I'll go back and forth a few times. So back to the original one. So you hear that bloaty, hashy thing in the low mids? That's what I call the low mids anyway. So it's a little cleaner with the this switched in the up position. So something I'm going to do here, though, I worry that it may be a little bit too, not quite enough bass. It may be getting a little bit too crispy. I'm going to unplug this. If anybody's inclined to open up their amplifier chassis and work on like what I'm doing here, don't do it unless you know what you're doing, because there are voltages in these tube circuits that can kill you. You have to really know what you're doing. If you're in here doing this sort of thing, you probably already know what you're doing, but I just want to make it very clear. This can be very dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. Okay, I'm going to power this back on. So what I've done here is I've put a clamp, or not a clamp, I don't know, whatever. What do you call these things? A clip, I guess. I clipped in another capacitor to give the less, the cleaner, or not cleaner, it's the dirt channel, but the less hashy, the smaller cap value, the smaller the value, the less low frequency gets passed, or the less low frequency. So from this is a 0.022. It's got kind of a ratty thing going on, and I'm not sure I like. This originally was a 500 picofarad, which is roughly a fourth the size of this first one. So I'm going to switch this one in. But now I've switched in a 0.001 in parallel with the 500 picofarad. So it's essentially roughly half of the value. So let's see. Okay. Now going back to the 0.002. So those are closer. Now I'm going to take this clip out. This is insulated, number one. Number two, the high voltage is on the other side of these caps. I know what I'm doing here. If you don't know, don't do this. But I know that I can safely pull that off. And I'm also going to put it back on so you can hear the comparison. Okay, so 60 cycle hum, yes. Gotta love the single coils. Okay, so we're back to the 0.022. .500 pico. .002, more bass. 500 pico, less bass. So you can definitely hear there's less trash. But is it too crispy? So what I'm going to do, listen to the hum here. Switch in the 0.001 to give it a little bit more bass, and you can hear it in the hum. That's the bass that's being passed through. So the difference is less, but okay, that's back to the 0.002, a little raunchier there. take that back out, back to the 500 picofarad. That's the less nasty of the three. I don't know. I'm interested to see what you think. I'll have a decision to make on this, but I'd be more than glad to get your input. So throw a comment up. So that's part of the process. I have this amp pretty close to where I want it already. So I mean, this is not the only thing that you might tweak with voicing. The thing I might try is another value for the pot here. This is a 1 meg. I may put a 500K in, see how I like that. Anyway, that's what we do here at Nolatone Amp Works. I appreciate you listening. Comment. If you like these things, let me know, because I've gotten set up. I'm hoping I have a good sound. I hope I have a good voice sound. Got a little help of an EQ module here to kind of cut out the annoying frequencies of my voice, hopefully. Anyway, hit like and subscribe, and we'll see if I can build this channel up, and I'll share these things. I'll share this journey with you if you enjoy it. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening.